Jay here from Stretford, Paddock. This is the Paper Talk. And I don't know what we're going to talk about. There's nothing happened, has there? I mean, get involved in the chat and the comments because we're live, but I genuinely don't know what we can discuss because I think for the first time ever, there's just literally no Manchester United news. I'm only joking, of course. There's loads of Manchester United news. I don't even know where to begin. We had the big bombshell last night that Cristiano Ronaldo was leaving Manchester United by mutual consent. I don't know how mutual that consent was, but he's going. Then, as if that wasn't enough, about 2 hours later, we had this news story leaking that the Glazers were finally ready to sell Manchester United Football Club. And then we had a statement, official statement by the club, that the Glazers were selling Manchester United or open to selling Manchester United and looking for someone to buy it. It's all been popping off. It has been one of the craziest sort of, not even 24 hours, 10 hours or whatever it's been in recent history of Manchester United. And I, for one, listen, we'll get into the Ronaldo stuff in a minute, but when on the Glazers, I am buzzing that they could be going. We just need to see who is coming in. Get involved in the chat. Get involved in the comments. I want to hear your thoughts on it. I'm going to sort of try and do this in a bit of a chronological order of what happened, when it happened, and all that jazz. But get involved in the chat. Danny Ian says, morning, Jay. Tim Collins says, bigger picture. Dino Lewis, morning, Jay. Rebecca Jodo Sullivan. Now, don't bin this year off. This year will be the start of new owners. I think that's in reply to someone. King Dino says, morning, Jay. Phone Sir Jim now. He don't return my calls. Laviva says, morning, Jay. Loads of people say morning, Jay. Great to see you. Santa Notch says, oh, look, it's Jay from the BBC, who's friends with Scotty from GMB. Nice. Bit of poetry there from Santa Notch. You want to get in touch with our kid there. You could do a little duet. Can I just say one thing as well, right? Santa Notch, while he's in there. Santa Notch, right, does predictions for us. When we do a game, you can send us your score predictions. And Santa Notch's are just elite. They're at another level, the predictions he does. He needs his own show. Right, let's go through Ross Murphy in the chat as well. Let's go through sort of what happened and when it happened, if I can find the sort of the running order of things. Because the sort of the big news, well, for a while anyway, last night, was the Cristiano Ronaldo announcement. It was around, well, I think it was 5:30 last night, wasn't it, that the club officially announced that Cristiano Ronaldo was leaving, because we sort of knew that, didn't we? After the interview that he gave with that whopper Piers Morgan, we knew that there was no way Cristiano Ronaldo could stay at Manchester United. You can't stay at a club when you said, I don't respect the manager, and the manager don't respect me. That is completely untenable, right? It's just not happening. So we knew it was going to happen, that he was going to leave. We just weren't sure when. 5:30, it drops. This statement by Manchester United. Cristiano Ronaldo is to leave Manchester United by mutual agreement with immediate effect. The club thanks him for his immense contribution across 2 spells at Old Trafford. Now, listen, I'm not one of those who's like, oh, what a statement. Wow, didn't they nail that one? But I quite like that one because it's pretty brief. It's to the point. I mean, you don't really need much more than that, do you? He's going, thanks for your service and all that sort of stuff, your contribution. We wish you well. In response to that, Ronaldo did his own statement, obviously, saying, following conversations with Manchester United, we have mutually agreed to end our contracts early. I love Manchester United and I love the fans. That will never, ever change. However, it feels like the right time for me to seek a new challenge. I wish the team every success for the remainder of the season and for the future. I kind of like that in a way, that it's just, again, brief, and it's just not any drama. There's not any sort of, oh, what's that mean, anything. It's pretty beige, and you probably need a beige statement. Now, some people are kicking off going, well, he obviously doesn't care about the fans. He doesn't care about this, the way he's acted. But I'm almost at a point now where I'm just done with it all. The whole saga of Ronaldo and what he's doing and what he's said and all this. And now he's gone. It's over, this drama. So we can all just move on now. Whether fans forgive him, whether fans still love him, whether fans still revere Cristiano Ronaldo, that's obviously up to the individual. It's up to you as a fan. Do you, is he tainted his legacy for you? Do you still think, nah, he's still one of the greatest players I've ever seen, I still respect him? Or do you think, that he's caused too many problems? Each to their own. I think at the moment, I still feel a little bit annoyed with Ronnie, the way he's carried on the last couple of months. He has made life difficult for Eric Ten Hag when he didn't need to. But I think, a few months even, or a couple of years, everyone will look back at Ronaldo and think, you know what, he was one of the best players we've ever had. Won the Ballon d'Or, won 3 titles, won the Champions League. Even in his last full season at the club, he still managed 24 goals, 6 in the Champions League, 18 in the Premier League. Wasn't that bad. So maybe, you know, time will be a great healer. Matt G in the Super Chat says, should we be worried Glazers pull the plug on transfer spend until they're gone, or do they allow transfer spend to keep value as high as possible? Good question, that. Are we going to see the Glazers sort of say, right, we're not selling, we're not buying any players until we get a new owner? I don't know. Let's get into some of the comments here. Juso Saran Valter says, early Christmas and Jay as the new Santa. Thank you. Rebecca Jade O'Sullivan says, people saying Ronaldo's the reason they're selling is false. They've been silently looking into this since the summer. Sorry. I don't think the Glazers saw that interview with Cristiano Ronaldo or heard that he was leaving and then went, that's it, we've got to sell. I don't. I think this has obviously been on the cards, like Rebecca's saying there in the chat, for some time. Now, did Ronaldo leaving, does that have any bearing, or the fact that they were going to get, they heard he was leaving or they knew he was leaving, does that have any bearing on the announcement? Because it does seem a little bit like, you know, wow, he's announced that and then an hour later or 2 hours later, we've had this announcement. Maybe they've gone, right, we'll announce it now because we don't want all the news to be about his departure, because that is probably a negative story for the club on a whole, because he's such an asset, just from a business point of view, which is all they care about. Maybe that has had some bearing on it, because it is quite a sort of, you know, coincidence that just after that, we get this other statement. I'll get into the other statement by Manchester United in a minute regarding what's happening with the club. But yeah, I don't think that it was a case of, we're not selling Manchester United, we're keeping it, we've had it for 17 years, Ronaldo's leaving, all right, that's it, now we're going to sell it. I don't see it. I think with this move, and by all means, get involved in the chat and the comments, because I'm no financial expert by any stretch of the imagination. I think there's lots and lots and lots of reasons that have added up towards this happening. It's not just one thing. I don't think it's, oh, because that's happened, right, the Glazers have sold. I think when you look at the Glazers ownership of Manchester United, it's obviously always been about money and how much money they can bleed from Manchester United, because that is what they do. They don't care about the club. They don't care about the fans. They never have done. You know, we had Henry Winter on our Glazers documentary, and he was telling us that when the Glazers came, he thought, right, okay, let's see what they're about. Maybe even give them the benefit of the doubt. And he was at a game, I think he was at a game at the Macron or the Reebok or whatever it was called at the time. And he said he saw the Glazers and their entourage pushing United fans out of the way, and he just thought straight away, they don't care about the fans. They're not interested. And then obviously you look at the debts and all the other stuff, and you go, there's no way these owners care about Manchester United. So, you know, we know what the Glazers are about. We know they want to just make money out of Manchester United. And it looks like they've realised the best way to make the most money out of Manchester United now is to sell. In the past, the best way for them to make money out of Manchester United has been to take these dividends and these loans and all these payments they take, because, you know, they pay themselves a lot of money, don't they? They also haven't spent any of their own money on Manchester United. They've had all these loans and this leveraged buyout, so it's not cost them anything. So they realise, you know, this is the best way for us to keep making money. Now they're at a point where the ground needs redeveloping. Old Trafford is in desperate need of redeveloping. Listen, I love Manchester United Football Club, and I love Old Trafford's given me some of the best moments of my life, but it needs, I personally think, rebuilding. Others may disagree. It needs at least revamping, needs something. There's talk of maybe even spending £1 billion on it. Maybe that's towards building a new stadium rather than revamping it. But you need to spend money on it. The training ground needs money spending on it. You can't just keep doing this thing that new managers do. And I'm not blaming the managers, by the way. Or we'll put some, you know, new cameras in, or we'll cut down some trees or whatever. It needs redeveloping. In 2000, when it was built, I think, it was state of the art. 22 years later, it ain't. It's almost like in training ground terms, a vintage training ground, an antique. You know, modern clubs and big clubs, elite clubs, have modern facilities. Now, listen, I didn't agree with some of what Ronaldo said, but I understand his frustration at some of the facilities, although I do think Erik ten Hag has addressed that. But on the whole, the training ground needs work on it. We still need to spend on the transfer market as well. We're still not challenging for the title just yet. We obviously, even if Ronaldo stayed, we still need a striker. He's 37. So you have to spend money there. So there's lots of places the Glazers have to spend money. You can't get away with not spending money. Not if you want Manchester United to be even remotely competitive. So they've realised they've got to keep spending some money, or spending our money, I should say, because none of it's theirs. So there's that part of it. Then you've got the other facet of the protests. And I believe all these protests have an effect. I think if you keep protesting, yes, some of them might not get through to the Glazers, might not notice, but when you've got sponsors getting affected by it, I think it matters. When you've got games getting postponed, that matters. Yeah, the Glazers can't have not noticed that the game was postponed, that Manchester United is all over the telly, including on places like CNN in America and all those sort of stations. I think Stacey Howson went on there, I think, when that happened. That's going to get through to Tampa or wherever it is they live. So there's that element as well. All these protests. You've got sponsors pulling out or trying to pull out. TeamViewer, I had the news on Monday. I think TeamViewer were looking at getting out of the deal they've signed with Manchester United, or one of their investors was unhappy with the fact they've spent 275 million quid or whatever it is on this sponsorship of Manchester United, and it ain't giving them the return they want. You've got all these other sponsors who are looking at it going, am I getting anything out of this? They're not in the Champions League. I've got all these fans hammering my Trustpilot ratings or whatever, which I think does have an effect. You've got all this going on. Is it worth sponsoring Manchester United in the current climate? Probably not. So you've got that. You've also got other clubs selling. Chelsea were up for sale in the summer. They had a lot of offers, including Jim Ratcliffe, who I'll get to in a minute. Now, obviously, they got a consortium that took them over. Todd Burley's the head of that. Liverpool are up for sale now. The Glazers might be looking at it going, some of these clubs that are up for sale could be getting bought by people that would have bought Manchester United if Manchester United was up for sale. That's money that we might have got and we might not be able to get from somewhere else. That's one consideration for them. So you've got all these different elements, I think, and I'm not an expert by any stretch of imagination, but I think it's all those different elements that point towards the Glazers going, now is the best time for us to make the most money out of Manchester United by selling it. I might be wrong. I'm not an expert. Get involved in the chat. Let us know what you think. I want to hear your opinion because I guarantee it'll be a lot more valid than mine. First thing you can do as well is like the video. Come on. Over 1,000 watching. Not even 100 likes. Let's get, right, to 500 likes on this video. Come on, we can do it. You know, it's all happening. There's loads happening. We've waited for the Glazers to go for 17 years. I know they've not gone yet, but it's a tentative step towards that. Simon Reynolds says, we've a top coach. We're backing properly. The Parasite's finally selling. We know what that means. Second half of the decade, we're doing a title charge. Love that. Dan Hale, yesterday, the biggest news day of all time. It's one of them, isn't it? It's certainly one of the biggest news days since Fergie retired. I think Fergie retiring was, for me, in my lifetime, as a United fan, probably the biggest Man United news was when Fergie retired. I'm not trying to belittle things because we've had, obviously, you know, from a Manchester United point of view, I remember when Sir Matt Busby died, for example. It's a tragedy and there's things like that. But I think in terms of news, probably the biggest news day was when Fergie announced his retirement, because the way it happened, it wasn't really leaked. It was like the night before, there was a little bit of a murmur, and I mean like late that night. There was no leaking. There was no proper stories on it. I think Andy Mitten tweeted in Spanish the calm before the storm, and then in the morning it all popped off. Guitarman84 said, maybe now with Ronnie gone, we can give Sancho the 7 shirt. Small things like that might boost his confidence, perhaps. Darren Ferguson with a £1 super chat. Jason McMillan says, Jay is CR7, new chant, Diva Ronaldo. Maybe. Liamston Strangler says, guys, best news ever. I can see myself in Jay's head. Dino Lewis says, your opinion is always golden, Jay. Thank you. Manchester Maverick says, Chelsea being sold for $4 billion, set the market price, and it's as high as it'll be in ages, and probably ever do that. Why Scousers and us owners are selling. John Carl says, has Steve been in touch, Jay? Yep, I had a little Zoom chat with Mr. Howson yesterday. He's just sent me, right, a mint little vid. Have you seen his picture with Evra? He's with Evra in Dubai. He sent me a little video, which you're going to see on the Brew on Friday. Steve's not coming on the Brew, and Evra's told me why. So, yeah, I was laughing my head off when I saw that. Alex Bailey says, yesterday was the slowest news day ever. Saudi beat Argentina. That's a good point. Now, Saudi Arabia beating Argentina was a massive story on its own. CR7 left. Glazers selling. So boring. Rebecca Jade O'Sullivan said, Jay, did you hear Sir Michael Parkinson going on Football Club Owners? I didn't. I saw a little bit of, that was on GMB, I think, wasn't it? Because my mate Dave Scott, our kid, was on there this morning doing the Lord's work, laying into the Glazers and you know, talking about how football clubs should be part of the community and how important they are, and they shouldn't just be playthings of these owners who want to just milk them. So, yeah, I saw that. I saw his. I didn't have time to see the Parkinson interview, but I will try and catch up with that a little bit later. Should we go into the statement that the Glazers did? This came out at 9:30 last night. You know, when I read things like that, I wish I'd have paid more attention in school, because I think I'm an intelligent guy, or relatively intelligent, perhaps. And then I read this and I thought, hey, so that mean? So this is the sort of the title of it. Manchester United announces process to explore strategic alternatives to enhance the club's growth. Right, okay. I'm not going to read all this because if I read it, I might fall asleep as I read it. But basically, it says Manchester United, one of the most successful clubs, is commencing a process to explore strategic alternatives for the club. The process is designed to enhance the club's future growth, with the ultimate goal of positioning the club to capitalise on opportunities both on the pitch and commercially. What? Here's the bit that matters. As part of the process, the board will consider all strategic alternatives. Stop saying strategic alternatives. What's that mean? Who talks like that? No one. Including new investment into the club, a sale. Now you're talking my language. Okay. Or other transactions involving the company. This will include an assessment of several initiatives to strengthen the club, including stadium and infrastructure redevelopment and expansion of the club's commercial operations on a global scale, each in the context of enhancing the long-term success of the club's men's, women's and academy teams and bringing benefit to fans and stakeholders. So you've got this, right? Basically, the line in there is the sale. It looks like, there could be a sale on the cards. Now, the Rain Group, it says here, is acting as the company's exclusive financial advisor, and Latham and Watkins LLP is legal counsel to the company. Now, you might think, who cares? But I'll get into that in a minute, because that might have some relevance. But yeah, that was the statement by the club, that they were open to selling, looking to sell the club. Finally, after 17 years, I wish that had happened in 2005, once he hadn't bought Manchester United, to be honest with you. It could have saved us all a lot of heartache. But it seems like a positive move. Get involved in the chat. Let me know what you think. Elitist. Santa Notch says elitist talk like that. I know. Just talk normally. You don't have to talk like that. I'm just going to look what everyone's saying here. Who do you want to see come into the club? Who do you want to see buy it? Is there a happy ending to this? Is there someone where they come in and you go, yeah, they'd be a great owner? Because we had Mark Ogden on the channel a few weeks ago, and he was saying about the likelihood is if the United sell it, it'll be a consortium. So you look at Chelsea. Todd Boehly didn't buy Chelsea with all his own money. He's not the owner on his own. He's not like Abramovich. He's the head of the consortium. Consortium bought Chelsea. And that's probably what you're looking at. The main two options seem to be a consortium, group of businessmen all getting together who've got a load of dough, sticking it together and buying Manchester United, or a sovereign state. Probably one of the Middle Eastern states who've got a lot of money, one of the Gulf states. We've seen it with PSG, with the Qataris. We've seen it with Manchester City, of course, with the Abu Dhabi group. We've seen it with Newcastle, with the Saudi Arabian group. Or the Saudi Arabia, I think it's basically the government, isn't it, that bought Newcastle via, some other company or whatever. So that seems to be the two main options. Now, the other option that everyone, or a lot of people I've spoke to, seems to be quite keen on is Jim Ratcliffe. Now, I don't know if you watched the video we did a few weeks ago. So Jim Ratcliffe did this sort of Q&A, and we did a live video at the time. I was watching it because it was the first time we thought he was going to get asked properly about buying Manchester United, and he was. He was asked about it. Now, there's a story in the Evening News here this morning, and it says, Sir Jim Ratcliffe delivered bad omen in inverted commas, as Man United put up for sale by the Glazers. So it says here, Sir Jim Ratcliffe may not be best pleased to hear that Manchester United have appointed the Rain Group as the club's executive financial advisor after he failed with his 11th hour bid for a potential takeover of Chelsea under their watch. So the Rain Group were involved in Chelsea. Now, the funny thing is with that 11th hour bid, or whatever you call it, for Chelsea, we had Kieran Maguire on from The Price of Football. I'm going to get him on again because he literally does financial football news. And he knows his stuff, and he's very, very good at breaking down complex financial sort of machinations and structures and news stories, and breaking them down and putting them into layman's terms so that people like me, who haven't got a jar of glue, can understand. Anyway, he was saying about the fact that bid by Sir Jim Ratcliffe for Chelsea didn't feel like it was a complete, I really want to buy Chelsea. It felt a little bit like it was almost, look, I've got the money to buy a football club. I'm interested. Maybe it's almost like a little sign to Manchester United saying, look, if the Glazers did sell, I'll buy it. Because he spoke about it. When he did that interview, when he spoke about buying Chelsea, he spoke about Manchester United. He spoke about going to Manchester United as a boy. And he said, Manchester United is not for sale. He didn't say, I don't want to buy Manchester United. He said it's not for sale. Now, when he did his Q&A, he said something similar. He said that he praised the Glazers, which, everyone's going, why is he praising the Glazers? It kind of made sense, because if you're going to go in something, you start slagging off the Glazers, that ain't going to do you any favours. So he even though I don't agree with it, he praised the Glazers, and he said that, Manchester United, again, he sort of said they're not for sale. But you look at it and you go, okay, now Manchester United is for sale. Could something happen? James Ducker's done a piece in the Telegraph, and he says, the American billionaires Josh Harris and David Blitzer, owners of the Philadelphia 76ers NBA franchise and minority shareholders in Crystal Palace, were among those who bid for Chelsea. That feels a bit wrong, doesn't it? Shareholders in Palace, and then, we're going to buy Chelsea. So Jim Ratcliffe, the billionaire majority shareholder of chemical group Ineos and a United fan since childhood, who has previously spoken to the Glazers about buying the club, failed with an offer for Chelsea that came 2 weeks after the deadline for new bids had passed. So came 2 weeks after the deadline passed. How genuine is that? It doesn't feel like, there was much chance of that really happening. So Jim Ratcliffe is the one that a lot of people are looking at. Now, there was just a story doing the rounds last night. I think it was someone like Mike Keegan in the Daily Mail or whatever, saying that it might happen because of the amount of investment that's needed in Manchester United. And he's also got shares in Nice and Jim Ratcliffe. So, it might be more that looks like an obvious one. Manchester United fans are keen on it, but is it going to happen? I don't know. We'd have to keep you posted on that one. It'll be one to sort of keep an eye on. I'll get into some of the chats. Ross Murphy says Ratcliffe wants an entire takeover, not just some of the shares, and hopefully his dream has come true. Yep. Richard says, as much as people hate the sound of it, a Middle Eastern state buying the club would be the biggest opportunity to build back up. Look at the investment City have had. I don't agree with that. I agree. I know what you're saying about they'll spend money. I just don't. It leaves a bad taste in my mouth, the club being a sports washing enterprise. Because don't kid yourself. Sheikh Mansour wasn't a City fan growing up. He didn't have pictures of, David Brightwell and Niall Quinn on his wall. He bought Manchester City to sort of promote his country and distract even from some of the human rights elements or abuses that were going on there. We've seen it with the Qataris as well with PSG. They don't buy in PSG because they love Paris Saint-Germain. They buy in PSG because, again, it's all about promoting their brand almost and in many ways just sort of, diverting from some of the more heinous stuff that's going on. Newcastle, Saudi Arabia and basically the country bought Newcastle United. Did they grow up with pictures of, the Saudi Arabian Mohammed bin Salman? Did he grow up with pictures of Mickey Quinn and Scott Sellers on his wall? I don't think so. They're buying it because they want to say, look, promote our brand. Newcastle ownership is, it's a different story for a different conversation. But when that happened, you look at Saudi Arabia, look at all the talk of like Jamal Khashoggi, the journalist who was murdered basically by the Saudi Arabian government, and everyone was just sort of, including a lot of journalists, sort of like, doesn't matter. Look at Ashley's gone, Saudis have come in, happy days. And it left a bit of a sour taste in my mouth. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I hate the Glazers. I want them gone. But if Manchester United became just a sports washing enterprise, I probably wouldn't bother going anymore. I wouldn't. I love United and I'll always love United, but I think there's a certain element or a certain line where you go, is that okay with me? No, it isn't. And, call me a lot of things, but I'm not going to be a hypocrite about it because I've criticised other clubs for doing that. So, I don't know. Let me know what you think. 3-inch hippopotamus says wokeness out. I don't know, is that wokeness really? Wesley Raven says, I bet the Saudi player who scored against Argentina will be at Newcastle soon. Maybe, who knows? Kushik Venkat is in the super chat, says Glazers are like glaciers, absolute melts. I like that. Slowly killing the planet club. Can't do anything about them until we all come together and do something about them. Glad we did something about them. Yeah, let's not forget, right? A big part of this has been protests. I don't care what anyone says. You can't say that protesting, getting games postponed doesn't have an effect. Going after sponsors and all that doesn't have an effect. You look at the 1958, they've done a lot of protests, organised a lot of stuff, seen some good work from them. Other people as well have done protests. I was tweeting Anthony Wilson before. I remember chatting to him a few years ago when he did the walkout protest. There's all these little protests, like I said earlier, they all matter. They all make a difference. Every little element that has made it harder for the Glazers matters. So I think, if you've been involved in any sort of process, even if it's online or whatever, do you know what I mean? More power to you. JKC Syriac 23 says, I agree with you, Jay. The reason why I loved United Mate, it's because we've always been a club with morality. I don't know if you're taking a piss. I think as a club we have but I don't know about, you know, the owners and stuff. Jake Speed says 1958, massive shout out. See, what about it? Like, yeah, all right. Where, so someone's saying, McMillian, Jay, where do you think the materials to make that Apple laptop come from? I'm not saying that, you know, there isn't a lot of heinous stuff that goes on and the sweatshops and all that sort of stuff. I'm just saying, if Manchester United became a sports washing enterprise, I probably wouldn't. I'd probably give up my season ticket. That's my choice. You might disagree. You might keep your season ticket. Fair play to you. I'm going to get in some more of the chats before we wrap up. Jordan Clark says, we are the biggest club in the world. Devious Orange says, Man United have spent far more money than City over 12 years. Money isn't the problem. Over the last 12 years, I think it is something like that. I think obviously they spent a lot more money when their owners came in. The problem is as well, we've had owners who don't know about football. And this is arguably more important than just getting in new owners who've got money. It's knowing how to spend money, how to back the manager properly. We haven't done that. The structure at Manchester United has been rotten. You've had bankers making footballing decisions. You've had managers coming and going. You've backed certain managers, then sacked him. You've brought in another manager with a completely different ethos, brought in a load of new signings for a bit, for a summer or whatever. And then when it's all gone Pete Song, you've sacked him as well. It doesn't make any sense. Right, I'm going to wrap it up there. Make sure you stay tuned to the channel. Make sure as well you subscribe to the channel. If you're not doing already, hit that subscribe button. We want to get 700,000 subscribers by the end of the season. We've also got loads going on. We've got an event. Have we got a link to the event, baggers? We'll put a link in the chat. We've got an event. Oh, yeah, in fact, I've got one. Sorry, it's in the description. And I'm going to put a little link in the chat as well. We've got an event coming up on the 30th of December. Myself, Adam McCullough, Stephen Howson, Joe Smith, and Brian McClare. We're going to be in Dublin on the 30th of December. I've just put a link in the chat. There's also a link in the description, so make sure you check that out. Don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe. We're back later on. We're going to have videos throughout the day giving you updates. Just before we go, Abdullah Ibrahim says, sponsors pulling out must be what broke the camel's back. I can't wait to see the back of them. We can't wait to see the back of the Glazers. We'll just have to see what happens next. I've been Jay Marty. This has been The Paper Talk, live from the studio. Thanks for watching.